Action oriented.
Straight up.
Okay.
Tu veux partir la balle?
Yeah, let's kick it off. So, hey everyone. I'm with Ghislain today. We just moved actually from where we were. We were downstairs. We were shooting another quick conversation about how we felt the event went last time for our club, and now we're shooting an pretty much off the cuff conversation. Nothing is really much rehearsed. We're just gonna like conversate about a few topics and see where it goes. And there's no time limit, and we're just gonna have fun doing exactly that.
Yeah, let's freestyle.
Yeah, I think this is where we might end up having the most interesting conversations when we freestyle. It's off the cuff, really.
I agree. All right, so part of the dinner, we had some historical questions that were part of it that we didn't got into, but we're actually going to try to experience those questions and to see if they will be part or not of the next dinner.
Yeah. All right, so yeah, let's kick it off. So what do you have in mind?
All right. Okay, so first one. What do you think was the most influential event in the world history and why?
Oh, the most influential event. That's a good one. The most influential event. Okay, so there's a few ones. Let's start by naming maybe the options. What do you think are the options? I think electricity for sure is one.
Correct.
Printing press is another one.
So we would dive into like the revolutions, right? The 5 revolutions that occurred.
Internet is another one.
Well, internet, I would put it around electricity because electricity allowed the possibility around internet.
For sure. But then, like, you wouldn't decouple it, like electricity, like
we can.
Internet could be like, oof. What do you think had a bigger impact, internet or electricity?
Well, electricity led to the internet.
Yeah, but right away, like 3 years or 10 years later, which one do you think had the most impact on like the human progress, if that's how we measure it?
So the internet really, it exploded in like the years 2000, and it was created in 1979, something like that.
Yeah.
So we're talking about 20 years for the internet to really, for us to really start leveraging its capabilities.
Correct.
And then if you look at electricity, I think in early 1800, and I don't know the official date. I think it was kind of used right away because we could use the internet for phones, for telecommunication, for lights as well.
Yeah.
We've seen the light bulb emerge from that.
Yeah.
And
well, right away they had to actually build all the infrastructure to do that, probably. Which probably took a lot of time.
Like yes and no. I feel that the electricity, the added value was clear. It's like you can see in the dark without the need of a fire. Rather than the internet, it's like you can communicate faster and differently. It's like, well, the phone is kind of already solving that.
Yeah. That is true that like electricity goes back to more of your primal instinct, like your number one, your shelter, you have heat, you can see. These things are probably like on the more like number one level. It's true that the internet is more like maybe a continuation of the printing press. Like maybe it's like a continuation of like how fast you can share knowledge with other people.
Which the printing press really like put the emphasis, right? It's like before that, you wanted to read the Bible. It was like a document written by hand.
Which one is more important? Like the
good question.
Yeah, which one is more important? Like the advancement of how we share knowledge, of how human knowledge grows, or satisfying your primal needs? I think that's then the two options that we have. It's like, do you have like heat and shelter, and you could,
So heat, like people would burn fire. Right, so that was kind of already.
That's a good point. What was the alternative back then, right?
Exactly. So fire was the option.
Yeah.
So I feel throughout history, like the primal need were kind of taken care of in
Yeah.
like depending on the wars and stuff like that in general. But I feel like it was already there. Even if you look at the time of the press, I feel people would live off the agriculture.
Right.
So this primal need was already being solved, and then like fire was already there. So maybe they couldn't in the time live, let's say, in like the freezing cold that we're experiencing here in Canada. But
Freezing
like
cold, yeah. It is.
in other parts, like if it's fairly warm, I feel like that's not a problem there.
Yeah. It's true. Like now that you say that, it is true that I'm sure I wasn't there obviously like when they had this issue, but it's true that like the primal needs were probably kind of solved throughout history, and the introduction of the internet like introduced a new type of knowledge sharing that I'm pretty sure probably moved human consciousness or knowledge like at a speed that is obviously like much faster than before, but probably had a bigger impact than maybe just solving the primal needs with like electricity.
I agree with that. So now let's
and to like maybe to prove
Sorry.
that like maybe just to prove that like the advancement of internet created like a gazillion more ideas that I don't think the electricity created,
Okay, so let's go back to the printing press in that case.
Yeah, right.
So if let's compare the internet with the printing
Right.
press.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, at its time, yeah,
Because no one had access to the knowledge, essentially, because all the books, all the writing needed to be written by hand.
Yeah.
There was absolutely nothing to scale
yeah,
those ideas.
yeah. For sure. Yeah. But then like, yeah, the advancement of the printing press for sure, like introduced a lot of like knowledge out there, but maybe also I'm thinking about it. I'm just putting it out there. I'm not sure about the human literacy at the time. So that's why even the internet could be like a much more impactful thing because it did influence like, or did impact like, probably like a huge percentage of people, because everybody like at the time where it was released, people could read and write. And I'm not sure at the time where printing press was released that it was the same.
So would you agree that the printing press allow more individuals to read and write
Then what?
than prior to the printing press?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It changed the game. Because like, what was it before? Like you had to write all the knowledge, and then like, it was like written, and then like,
So arguably, wouldn't that make the printing press even more relevant to the history, because it actually allowed humanity to understand like symbol and languages, and really like one of the things that when you travel you realize is that the intelligence of an individual can be linked to the number of languages that individual speaks.
yeah, I think that is that might be a true point.
It
Does work well in my favor, but I don't know. I'm sure there's something about the amount of language or that you learned that is like in your brain somewhere that has developed. I'm sure that it does like impact something. Yeah.
Totally.
So going back to the printing press. Yeah, I mean, the 0 to 1 seems to be like the printing press over the internet for sure. The 0 to 1 impact. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I would like to propose another one, because
Mhm.
we kind of went into like the internet versus
Yeah.
printing press.
There's
or the
probably like 10
electricity.
more. Like,
Yeah, straight up. And
yeah.
I think one that is a lot more like relevant to nowadays is actually quantum computing.
Mm.
And I feel this technology, because we're now like involved into cryptocurrencies and we understand software and so on. I really feel that quantum computing, as soon as it's going to be more widely available, this is actually a technology that will disrupt most of the things that we're doing. Like even AI, if we think AI as it is today, it's very powerful. It's absolutely nothing compared to what AI can be if it runs on quantum computers.
So what is quantum computers?
That's a good question. I like that. So, from my understanding, let's say we have a discussion. So, our dialect, like we speak English right now, there's about 26 letters in the alphabet. Those are the symbols that are being used to construct all the words. And then our ability to communicate with one another is directly linked with the number of words that we can express. So in some shape or form, we're actually limited in our way of communicating because we use the English language.
Right. Yeah, there's like, yeah, because whatever you have in your mind is only it's only like a derivative of like what the language could actually like allow you to input. Essentially, it's an input of your ideas.
So when you look at computers right now, the only two symbols that they use for everything is 0 and 1. Like you extract a character out of a word, it's going to be stored in 0 and 1, and then it's going to be processed as 0 and 1 at the computing level.
Right.
So when you start looking into quantum computing, the value is 0, 1, and everything in between. So with only one operational unit, you can have like almost an endless possibilities.
Yeah.
So the dialogue or the tools that are now being provided for like software, just computer science in general, is now every unit can be pretty much anything. So all of a sudden, all the calculations become increasingly faster because they are not necessarily limited by zeros and one or a very primitive way of communicating.
Yeah.
If I can compare that, it's like animals, they communicate through sound. But if they could communicate using words, dialect, and so forth, they would be a lot more efficient. That's why actually humans have evolved the way we are. It's one of the things to actually go back. Maybe it's the possibility of words that we are using to communicate.
So, and how do you see that like in terms of advancement for humans? Like what's the use cases that people will be able to benefit? I can see the calculation being so useful. I don't know nothing about the subject, but I can imagine like, you know, better predictive, like let's say you want to like calculate how a car would crash, like for example, like boom, like you can probably like use that to calculate like, or a plane, how it would crash and stuff like this. But what are other use cases?
Well,
like
one that I think it's very like we're seeing already being put into society, and it actually there was an event this week called We Robot by Tesla. So they are trying to solve self-driving cars. When you want to solve self-driving cars, you need a lot of computing power because you need to consider absolutely all the possibilities. And for each processing unit, you have to consider all the cameras in real time. So all this can actually be drastically improved is the computing unit that is being used to run those algorithms is actually faster. So that would be like one of the benefits. We could really solve it extremely fast and better if we had better technology under the hood for processing of the information.
And just the increase of like the GPU's power, like wouldn't come up to the.
Like GPUs, it's just a different way of processing the information. It's still around 0 and 1s. And arguably even the neural processing units that are being introduced right now, it's just a way of computing the zeros and one differently.
So you'd have like quantum computing at like up there with all the rest of the options.
Correct.
And what about like what Elon did like last week? He catched a booster in midair.
Oh, you want to go in that direction?
I don't know. I'm just putting it out. Like, do you think that that would be a situation where we were like, shit, we just witnessed history, like 300 years ago, where like this is the time where like Edison created electricity, maybe, you know? It's the time where like it's you know, is it a moment where it's like the Wright brothers, where they made the plane like flew for the first time? Is it like, because maybe in 500 years when we're chilling on Mars or something, or you know, like we might look back at this moment as like a moment where this is where it all started.
Well, I think it started really when he was able to land the first rocket. Right. For me, I put it exactly at the same level as that, because he was still able to actually land a rocket in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, but it was a small one. I think.
But it was also the small one that he caught.
I'm not sure. It's
just a different structure.
So why do you think it was important for him to get it in midair? I think it's because of the size.
No. It's because it's from my standpoint, it's because it's the same software that is running on those rockets that it's going to be embedded in the really big ones. Because the big ones, when you look at them, it's actually the very same structure as the smaller ones, just bigger.
But what was it important for him to like? That's a good question, actually. I don't know if you know the answer, but like, what was it important for him to actually catch in midair and not land it like the other ones?
Because after that, he put it back on the structure, and the structure already has the refueling aspect for right away reuse the rocket. So it's like planes right now. You want to go back to the Wright brothers.
Yeah.
If you look at planes, at the beginning, they would fly, do their trip, and after that go like through a lot of maintenance and checkups and all that sort of things. But then we actually improve the airports, improve the airplanes in a way that they will now land, drop off the passengers, more people go into the plane, and then it drive off. It's because of the infrastructures that were built around those planes that now.
So you think it's a process? You think it's more of a operational like streamline? Are you sure? I would be surprised a little bit. Let me see. I'll ask your ChatGPT. Let me see what they think about this. Why is catching a rocket by SpaceX last week was important milestone? I'm very curious. Like, if it's a processing thing, then it means that like it wasn't like it's not a milestone event. Then it's like, if it's, for me, from my understanding, what it was is that I felt that for bigger structures it would be like kind of hard to land it, so like it needed to be catched.
No, I think it's purely for reusable aspect of it.
Really?
Yeah. But
they can make it land and just like shoot it back.
Well, that's the goal, because the infrastructure that is right underneath has all the pipelines that can put the fuel and the proper fuel into the the drone, or whatever, the rocket.
Versus, I think you're right, actually, just landing it like before. Yeah, I think you might be right, actually.
Yeah, maybe. Like, shit, I'm not stupid.
Well, previous catch landed booster catching them lies in the all right. Oh, okay, yeah, you are. Yeah, it's really just about reusability. It's like, if you then like, if you land it, then it's like you said, it's gonna increase like the cost by a lot to then like move it back on the thing, and then it's not gonna be, it's gonna make the next release like super expensive. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You were on point about this. You've been following rockets for a long time. Like, you've been like.
Well, I love technology.
Since 2018, I remember like you used to like just sit down and watch rockets shoot when it wasn't even a thing. I remember.
Yeah, I love technology. That's what it is.
Okay, so you say like rockets landing. Would you put it in the top?
Oh no, not even.
Not even the rockets landing. Not even. God damn it. Okay, so what do we have right now? We have electricity. We have quantum computers. We have internet, printing press.
Yeah. From my standpoint, those are kind of the top.
What about cars and vehicles, like transportation?
Well, if we go in that direction, I would put the
planes.
No, the production line that came with the car. So cars as itself, I don't like. It's a technology. We had horses at the time that were solving exactly the same issues, but the manufacturing that allowed scalability around those cars, I think that was the real breakthrough around the cars, because it drastically changed the way everything was being built. And because cars were now available to most people, then that created the roads, and that created a new ecosystem around it. But if it wasn't for the possibility of creating them in mass, I don't think all the impact would have been the same.
Yeah. So car is not on the list, but the streamlining of building them, essentially. Yeah. What's that technology called? I'm sure there's a name for that.
Yeah, there's a name. I forgot about it.
Yeah, like there's a name for like mass production like this.
Yeah.
It's putting like, yeah. I don't know who invented that. Okay, cool. So among these things, like among
we switch subject.
we could let's maybe could conclude on one.
Okay.
Pick one and then we switch.
Oh, I have to pick one.
You got to pick one. That's
I would put the printing press.
You'd put the printing press.
I like that. Printing press.
I would put I don't know. I would put electricity, just because I feel like, you know, if you feel like you have a heat, I feel like you can now think about other more important things.
Perfect. I like that. All right. Which historical figure do you think best represents leadership, and why? That's a good one.
Historical figure. Well, look, I have to say, in my lifetime, it has to be Donald Trump.
In your lifetime?
I think maybe ever. I have to say, for
Why?
me, it's fucking simple. Well, look, there must have been like other figures in the world that also represented like a lot of, but I don't know them, so I can't really talk about all these other figures. And I'm sure there must have been like a lot of figures that were like very, very important for society and humanity. But from what I've seen in my lifetime, and I've been there for like 33 years old, I can't remember another like figure that was so important in terms of draining the corruption in the swamp and moving the land of the free world, or the land of the free living, like United States, forward. And this person has been persecuted more than Al Capone, by the way, which is absolutely crazy. It's like they have federal charges against him like to the roof. So so I feel like this person has been fighting an ongoing, by the way, that now like there's so much hate about him. There's so much hate. But this guy in 2015 was among the most loved. He was like friends with everyone. He was, and that just shows you like the persecution of someone who's trying to push the swamps away and trying to push like people out, the corrupt people, like what they will do to you. You went from one of the most liked figures, like they loved you. You were invited at all the parties, at all the shows. Everybody loved Donald Trump. He was in rap songs. Everybody liked him very much. To go from that to one of the most hated person in humanity right now, actually, like if you just, I was on a date yesterday.
Tell me.
And I feel like if I didn't push my point that much, but like
no, tell me. Go about your date. I'm very curious.
I just like spoke about Donald Trump, and I think the girl was like might have like tripped a little. I had to tone it down and say like, maybe he's not all that, but like that just to show like you cross somebody random in the street and their perception about this person has been totally deranged. Like there's a syndrome right now that's called like a Trump derangement syndrome. So my point is that this guy went from one of the most liked figures to one of the most hated figures, and he didn't have to do that. At no point in time he had to do that. He's rich. He could have lived his life, but he went back into serving his country because he felt that the swamp and the corruption was taking it over. And he could have also quit at many times, 1 year in, 2 years in, 3 years in. Like he could have quit. He didn't. He kept on pushing through. and now he's like 10 years in and he's still there. And 10 years in, and actually like what I'm seeing today, which is insane, he went from a win that people thought it was impossible to a loss that is arguable because there was a lot of corruption in that loss, by the way. But then he could have stopped there. We thought it was the end of it. It was, and he could have stopped there, and it was a pretty good ending. You know, he's a business person, one of a kind actually, because he's a business person that went into politics. It's you never see that. You never see that. He made that. You know, he made that idea possible for other people. So he could have just stopped in 2020 and be like, this is it. You know, I've campaigned. But he came back now, and the polls are showing that he might win. So it's a beautiful story, in my opinion, to go from, you know, unexpecting, you know, underdog, you won, then you lost, and then you came back because you thought that your job wasn't done to now potentially being the next United States president. So. Yeah, in my opinion, like as a political figure or as someone who represents leadership,
Yep.
I can't think of many. I can't, maybe like, you know, Elon Musk, who's been doing it just for the sake of humanity. Like he's been creating all these stuff to advance humanity. Maybe could be a candidate, but
I would put it a candidate. In my
but
opinion.
for me, like what really tests leadership is how much like how much you deal with adversity. That's super important. And again, obviously, like Elon Musk has dealt with a shit ton of adversity. But I feel like the adversity that Donald Trump, you know, he got shot. Like, God damn it. Like, it doesn't come like, you know, they like he got shot like that. And they try to kill him twice. So, like, I think the type of adversity that this guy went through is unmatched. So I would have him like as my person. Who do you think would be your?
So like I would put Elon Musk there just because his story is kind of inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was growing up through university and even afterwards, like I used to follow a lot of what he was doing, and
A lot.
I used him as a mentor for the different things that I was like even building myself. So in our lifetime, I would agree that Elon Musk is kind of somebody that I look up to as a mentor and as a leader. All right. And I really, really liked what he was building. It was inspiring to see. And I think leaders are there to inspire people, to give hope.
Yeah.
So
If I could like, so you use him like because he was like, you liked what he did, and you're like, I could like you derived energy from him probably.
yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly. And it inspired me to be better in the things that I was doing. So I think that is very important as a leader to do.
Yeah, if I could actually go back on my answer, because like you made me think of something. It's true that the way that you positioned it, then I would have a lot of people that I derive energy from. I would have like athletes. Like I derive a lot of energy from like Cristiano Ronaldo. Like a lot of energy. Like
100%.
I think it is for me. It has been something that's been working since I was a little kid. I was able to derive energy from like people that I look up to a lot and try to like steal their patterns of how they ended up in these good positions. So I was always, you know, I derived a lot of energy from an athlete like Cristiano Ronaldo. I love the way that he showed up, you know, and it's spectacular that for every position that he stepped into, every new team, no matter the age, young or old, he performed like no one else. And that for me is like crazy. That's he never slipped. He was never injured throughout a whole career. He always came up as the top goal scorer in every team. And I mean, what I learned a lot from him personally is that his work ethics, really it's about his work ethics. Everybody around him says he was the first in at the gym, last out. Every day, in and out, it didn't matter. And there's a lot of moments just like, you know, in his career that I'm like, oh, it's finished. You know, he went to the World Cup, he lost. I'm like, it's time to retire. He came back. So yeah, for me that he's been probably like another guy like this.
I like that.
Yeah. So should we carry on?
Yeah. Do you believe that society has progressed throughout history, or are there cycles of progress and decline?
Oh, it's a fact. There's cycles. It's a fact. Like, I mean, I think, so the way that progress happens is when you have society that is open for exchanging ideas. Actually, one of the key principle of this is course correction of ideas. It is
Value of the club.
yeah, it's crazy, but like one of the key things about how societies progress is like how they course correct ideas. It's really it's really where like you'd have a society where people could exchange free ideas and it could get bounced back and have different opinions, try to correct some of the flaws of the ideas. And across humanity, that didn't happen much. It did not happen much. It happened like right now for the last 200 years. It's a new thing, actually. It's a very, very new thing. And I think it also happened somewhere in Italy in the 1300s or something, maybe around that time. There was a little brief moment where the emperor or the king at the time was open for, course correction, or was open for criticism, and at that time, there was a brief moment where a lot of ideas came through, a lot of art came through, a lot of different thinking patterns came through. And then I think he died or somebody took over 50 years later, and then that ended. Which, by the way, it always makes me think, well, to answer the question in really briefly, I think it's cycles. And what creates that cycle is the openness of the leadership of the country or the place or the society at the time to be open for criticism of ideas. And across society, across time, many moments they weren't open for criticizing no ideas. And it's new right now for the last 200 years. And by the way, we take it for granted, but we might lose it. It is not a given. It is not a given that in 100 years that we will still have progress of ideas. It is possible that like in 100 or 200 years, it's done. There's no more progress of ideas. So I think it is cycles, and I think it is all created by how people are open for criticism.
Nice. I like that. I would like to share maybe a different opinion on this. So there was it's a book as well as a video made by Ray Dalio about the changing world order. And if you look at like patterns, because we've seen that throughout history, and like to go back to your point about cycles, like you can see it about what are the currencies that actually dominated the world throughout like history, or like the past hundreds of like years prior, and every single economy went through exactly very similar patterns. All right, so like inception, and then you could see the growth because it was providing a lot of value, and then it consolidated at the top, and all the rich got richer, and the more they got richer, the more they actually printing the dollars, and the more they printed, the more like people started to have degenerative values, which then lead to the collapse of the currency. And while there was a decline, there was another currency that I've seen like the space being created by the lack of discipline by the prior currency. And then the same cycle exactly happened as well. And I feel we're actually seeing the same thing right now, where since the past couple of years, we have printed more than there was money in circulation. So, and we are seeing with the BRICS nations coming all together and starting to build their own currency, seeing a momentum like out of it. And like arguably, in the Western culture, it's very different, the values and what unites the people, than if you go, let's say, in Asia or another part of the world.
Yeah. So you think we might be assisting at like the end of it, or like a different time that is upcoming, a beginning, like?
Well, I think that right now we are actually experiencing a decline from what one currency
Yeah.
and seeing the uprise of another one. So I really feel we're like in the middle. We are about to assist like history, like some things most people don't get to see or experience in their lifetime, because the change of currency normally happens like what, every 300 years, something like that.
Yeah.
And we are actually starting to experience that, and it's happening like at the scale of the whole world, which is fascinating from my point of view. So and when you go in other countries, they will actually say that like the Western values are in declining. Like most people don't necessarily agree to those values.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I just want to turn this thing off.
Which thing?
The screen. I think
Why?
it's distracting.
No, just stop looking at it.
On peut pas. Ça te dérange pas? Tu veux le garder?
Ouais.
Okay, so we could keep it. Okay, yeah. So, yeah. So you're saying that, yeah, we're assisting at, but that's how it's always gonna go, right? Like, there's no time. I think no matter the time no matter the time, there's always gonna be like we made something right, we killed it as a society, we kind of like leverage it, we create like a lot of value through it, and then we become like so like confident, we're like, and then we start spewing the money all over the place because we're like everything we do works, so like these new ideas will also work like before, until we hit a reality check and we're like, shit, it doesn't work, and then we lose everything, and then it restarts. So what do you think is going to be the new thing that's going to take over if we're witnessing an end of something? How do you like how do you see, maybe like, do you think the US is going to be like the dominant power for a long time, or?
Well, I think now with technology that is advancing at an extremely fast pace, and globalization happening in really all countries, so borders breaking down everywhere, I really feel that like we are assisting to a new economy that is going to be digitalized. Now, what is going to be the official unit? Right now, if you look at most of the digital currencies, it's all around like the US dollars, and like one of them internationally that is widely accepted so far is actually USDT. So USDT has built a layer that is based off the US dollar, but a very, very different technology than the USD. So by itself, it's another currency. It's USDT. It's not USD, right? It's peg off the US dollar.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we are assisting to that because while I was traveling in the past year, one of the things that I did notice is how people actually transact with one another. And it was pleasant to see that there is a digital currency that is being used. It's not Bitcoin, it's like USDT. And it really allows everybody to transact because it's a stable coin. The value is fixed and it's pegged off the reserve currency as well. It's just the technology is so much better than like the one right now. I'm trying to make some payments internationally, and you have to justify your investment at like every level of the process, and it takes days before it gets into a specific bank account. But with that technology, it's instant. You say, okay, confirm. The other has the money in its account. So I would say we are experiencing this technology being 10 times better than the previous one. So people are changing their habits.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. The technology is like for sure 10 times better. I mean, the payment system right now is all cluttered by like so much bullshit. Like it's actually like it is so simple but stupid at the same time. Like making a company that is a payment processor.
Yeah.
is very hard. It's one of the things that I do not understand. Like, and actually, if you ask the people who trying to create a payment company, a payment processing company like Stripe or something, they'll tell you it is so hard to create a company like this because of the 50 layers of bullshit that's in between, the sender and the receiver of money. So
Totally.
for sure the fact that you can pay in USDT right now is beyond powerful, but it's not yet mainstream though. It's not yet mainstream. And
I would say you haven't traveled enough or do enough business. I remember when I was at Helium Deploy, some of the invoices we were receiving from the suppliers, they had the USDT address. You could actually
still today we could still pay in USDT.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. The
Yeah.
option is already there.
Yeah.
If it's not mainstream enough, it's maybe you don't have a cash flow right now of USDT, so you don't leverage that opportunity. But for people who actually
I don't consider ARC my company or anything because we sell crypto hardware. So we have people that want to pay in that and stuff, and I think that's kind of an option. But I don't consider a community because they're like crypto people. I'm talking about like your dad, my dad, like your sister, like people that were at a dinner last time. Remove HD side, but like.
But like to my point, they don't do business internationally. That is really a behavior that I'm seeing when you start doing international business, not when you receive like you transact locally, because technically here the economy is in Canadian dollars. It's not even in US dollars.
I see your point. Yeah. You're like locally it's solved. Like you have no problem. You can pay in whatever ways. Like
there's trust between people, so it doesn't matter if it takes 1 or 3 days to pay. It's like I know we will do business on the long run as well.
Yeah, but then on the international level,
the options are there because it's so much better than the previous one. And since everybody transacts in USD internationally, there is this stable coin through a network, like using software that is extremely good, works extremely well, and it's extremely fast relatively to the current system, that yes, people are actually leveraging that very, very, very
to do
much.
transaction.
Yeah.
It is true that like if you're like somewhere like in Bali or somewhere like what are your options, right? Like you don't have a lot of options. Like, yeah, you don't.
And especially like, because we're building a club, an exclusive club, and the more exclusive it's going to be, people are going to have very different behaviors around the way they handle their finances.
Mm-hmm.
Like throughout the quality of individuals that you meet, I don't think the highest, let's say Elon Musk doesn't manage and move his money the same way as, let's say, we do.
Probably not, right? No, absolutely not. Yeah,
exactly. And we don't know how he moves his money. We got no idea because we're not in his circle.
Yeah.
So, but the higher we're going to get, the more likely we will find alternatives to way of transacting.
So you're saying we're actually like live witnessing a disruption that's like taking place in terms of payment processing right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I would tend to agree so much. Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's go in a different type of question, more lifestyle questions.
Yeah.
We had a couple.
Yeah.
I think. What's a place you visited that had a lasting impact on your perspective on life?
Oh, wow. Shit. Probably like, I have to say like my first trip in Ibiza.
Okay. Ibiza for you? Why?
Yeah, I have to say my first trip in Ibiza because.
How did it change your perspective?
It's really materialistic probably, and but I have to say like really like when we got there, it was such a vibe. It was crazy. Like I was like, first of all, I'm like I want to live this my whole life. Like I want to do this a lot. It requires a shit ton of money, so I was like. Okay, so how, like, yeah, so this is like what life looks like if you really do it well, like not for 2 days, but really like do it for a longer period of time. But yeah, and I then realized I met different types of people over there, and it's really by meeting different types of people, I'm like, holy shit, there's another type of bracket of people that are mighty successful. And at the time, like I think it was 3 years ago or 2 years ago, it was 2022 or something. And for me, I was like, these guys are probably doing a better job than I am in my day to day, because they were like, you know, they were having.
They were balling.
They were
right?
balling in Ibiza. They were fucking balling in Ibiza, and that created for me. That created an internal trigger of like, yo, you know, this is where you're at right now, and when you go back, you gotta like work 10 times more. So until today, I still have these memories, because I was like, shit, okay, like I didn't appreciate too much, like being on the sidelines.
Yeah, for sure.
It wasn't
made you realize how broke you were.
Yeah. I didn't like it too much. I was like, yo, it's okay. So that's not gonna happen again. And I remember till today, it's a memory that I still have about it, like how, you know, how I want to work and how I want to accomplish stuff.
So it allowed you to really think differently about your own reality and think even bigger, because you've seen how other people are living, and you wanted to have a very similar lifestyle than this.
Yeah, pretty much. It was a healthy reality check. Reality check.
Yeah, I think it's important.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I think it's very important to travel, because it creates those.
But to that question, I think another point that is super important. It's like, I think some people like improve in different manners. I feel like one of the things that I personally do well is how I like, the way that I improve the most is how I measure against other people. For some reason, it's like other people are not wired that way, but for me, it's something that I'm wired exactly that way. It's you know, like it's like there's certain people that I'm like, shit, this person is doing much better than I am, and it's healthy, like competition. It's just healthy. I could look up at that person and be like, wow, this person is like doing great, and I'm gonna like try to like do as, you know, as good as him. Some people are wired that way, and I learned that from athletes. I learned that from
Leadership.
athletes. Yeah. So like, for example, Michael Jordan would create a fake enemy in the basketball game. Is he would be like, this guy like called me out, and they would like walk across one another, and this guy would not even look at him, and he would go back to the cameras and say, or to his team or something. I don't remember the exact thing that he said, but he's like, I had to do it on him because he said something. And then they interviewed the guy, I think it was Charles Barkley, and he's like, bro, I never said anything to him. I don't know what he's talking about. And so he created that fake competition, and he said, I had to put 40 on him. He had to put 40 on him. And I feel I'm wired a little bit the same way. I'm wired in a way where there's, you know, specific people that I need to compete with to like achieve stuff. Some people are wired totally differently. They compete against themselves. But for me, that's the way that I improve best. And I feel like that's one of the things that you really got to dig in yourself and figure out, how do you improve best? Do you compete against yourself, or is it better when you compete or you see other people and you try to like match them? For me, it has been that way.
I like that.
Yeah.
So for me, since I'm wired very differently, I like to compete against myself. So obviously the places that affected my perspective are going to be tailored that way. So the first one that I will put, it's actually the Canadian Rockies. All right, the mountains. Like, why? It's because, first of all, it's magnificent. It's just beautiful. And I feel, especially in the world today, most people don't, like, they travel for experiences and social media and stuff like that. But when you truly travel for yourself and you find something that is extremely appealing to you, that the energy really fits your personality, it actually like attracts you. And for me, the Rockies, it's like, it tells me how beautiful nature can be. It's just so peaceful. You can stay in the middle, appreciate the sun, the view, the breeze, like just everything is extremely enjoyable from my point of view. And it made me realize how like peaceful life can be, and how like important it is to just appreciate the present moment. So that is for me like an event that really, really changed my perspective. And since then, I think it's been 4 years now. Every summer, I just go back there because I just enjoy that. And it's a relaxing moment outside of every distraction, just with yourself and being in the present moment with nature. It's, for me, extremely important.
So that, yeah. So you're able to derive a lot of energy from that. Like you think about that on a day to day, like, or on a month to month, or like sometimes, or.
Well, for me, like more and more, it's becoming important that I just go there, middle of the wood, spend like a month, and just enjoy nature. Like enjoy some things that got lost over time because we built around like cities and man-made structures, that sometimes we just forget that we're actually like part of nature, and it's important that we connect with nature as well.
I think that's a very good point. I think that's a very, very good point. Like there is an energy that is totally untapped by most of us, that we're so accustomed to being in the cities that we're not touching like the natural energy of like the woods, forest, being there without like what we have on a day-to-day basis. I feel there's a type of energy there that's like, I can't put my finger on it, or I don't have a name on it, but every time I go in the woods, or every time I get lost, or every time I go camping, which doesn't happen a lot, but when it does, I do come back refreshed with another perspective. And there's a kind of energy there that might be like natural to us. The same way that we might look at processed food as being not natural to us. We go back to natural food, maybe like natural habitats like this, connecting with nature like this is more natural to us. And there's probably like a huge amount of energy that we can derive from doing these experiences. And I think not a lot of us do that on in our lifestyle. Like it's very
Totally.
rare. Even you, like you say, one time a month. I'm the way that you're speaking about it. If you have so much positive energy that comes from it, then it should be like almost like weekly. We should find ways to go weekly, monthly to get that dose.
So that's why I actually really like Bali. So Bali, you kind of get that because like the energy is just different. Especially there, people are extremely mindful about everything. And whenever you walk in the street in Bali, there's always those, I don't know how to say it in English, but it's just something about their religion that they put on top of every streets and a bit everywhere, where for them they actually intentionally put them there and gave a very, very specific type of energy that just makes it so healthy to be around that, and just so appreciative of the environment when I go there. So I kind of get that when I go to Bali. It's like the other part of the world, right?
They have. I've never been to Bali, but I was in Thailand, and there is totally an energy that people over there put there. That is not that is intentional.
Yeah, exactly.
That is they put a lot of emphasis on well-being mentally. Really,
Totally.
really. I think that for them, well-being mentally is like. For us here, like, you're a pussy.
Yeah, straight up.
And I think there's, it's part of our like Western society
Declining
values, but it is. I don't know if I associate that with the decline. I think it's one of the, it's one of the conservative Western society's values, where it's like competition, like being strong and all that kind of stuff. And in doing so, we might not put a lot of emphasis on well-being, but for sure, if you go, I haven't been in Bali, but I remember in Thailand, which is like, kind of the same culture-ish, there was a lot of like emphasis on well-being, like the parks, the beaches, the sounds also. I remember going to the beach and like there was like a constant like they would make a sound with an instrument, and it was like an appealing, a very, very calm sound.
There we go.
Yeah.
So to your point, you should do that every week, right? But you need to be in an environment that valorizes this type of energy.
Yeah.
And I don't feel you can get that in North America. You get that in other part of the world.
Like that conversation is interesting because it makes me realize why I love like Florida so much. Because I don't know what it was, but every time I was over there, I used to go to the beach and just chill on the beach for 30 minutes. And that's probably the closest.
And the sun.
And that's probably the closest thing that I had to like local nature, in the sense where I was like able to reconnect with like maybe my primal instincts as a human, just being on the beach, around the water, on the sand. Maybe, you know, it's maybe equivalent to being in the woods in like North America, like in Canada or something. But that's maybe why when I was in Florida, I was like, wow, every time I like work, I go to the beach, I feel re-energized going back to work like afterwards.
Yeah. In the US, that would be Kentucky for me.
Yeah.
There's just something about this state for me that is extremely appealing. Everything is beautiful. There's still this legacy that you can feel. Lots of horses. Yeah, lots of beautiful women at the same time. People are rich. Like I don't know.
Rich, women, horses. Looks like a good trio.
yeah, straight up. It doesn't beat the Rockies though, the Canadian Rockies.
So what do you say to people living in Montreal? How do you reconnect with, like, you know, not a lot of people can go to Kentucky, or, you know, not a lot of people are going to just leave their place and go to Florida or Bali even. I love these places, but what would you say for somebody who's living in Montreal? Like, how can you reconnect with your, you know, with maybe your primal instincts in a sense?
Well, Quebec, we have a lot of beautiful places. Like, Quebec is actually a province that is extremely rich in natural resources. And like Montreal is one city part of the province. So to answer your question, I would just say get out of Montreal, get out of cities. And we have a lot of natural parks. Like CEPAC is doing a very, very good job at maintaining specific part of Quebec and ensuring that people can go there, experience nature, experience water, just experience the beauty of like what nature has to offer us.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, just get the fuck out of Montreal.
It's true that we have a lot of options. Like, there's no excuses for that. We do have a shit ton of options like around here. There's a lot of parks. There's a lot of space here. Just generally in Quebec.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just the city is, you know, a good center point to settle. Like, I agree with that. And like, this is where we actually conduct business as well. So very like centerpiece of my life, definitely. But there's more to life than just money and our daily like behavior that we do just to ensure we have money in our bank accounts.
It's sad, but I see it as more like it's what's gonna fuel me to actually get more money.
100%.
I'm wired that way. I'm trying to unwire myself from like thinking that there's like different stuff than like business or stuff like this, and I'm actually scared actually that if I unwire myself from this, I won't be as good anymore. It's like
or actually better.
Well, it's like a soccer player who I don't know. I'm wondering, like, if a soccer player is like, then, you know, figure out that there's other stuff than like winning the World Cup. Is he going to be as good?
All right, but you have to see money as a tool, right? So what is your ambition in business? Like, why are you doing it that is not linked to money?
I want to make sure that like the potential I have is being applied in the real world to the fullest.
Okay. What is the game that you choose to play where you want to become the best?
Business.
So this is your playing field. So in your case, it totally makes sense because this is the game that you choose to play. But I'm sure there is a lot of people in the audience that like money is just a tool. That's not necessarily what they want to do. And even grow business, it's just a mean to an end because they understood that, okay, while I build a business, it actually allows me freedom to do whatever else I want to accomplish.
Yeah.
Right. And even like to the soccer player, money, as soon as they reach a certain level, money doesn't like it comes their way. It's not fueling them anymore because
it's never been about money.
There you
Like
go.
it's like even for me, like even in business, it's never been about money. I couldn't care. I mean, like it is important because
It is important.
I've also been in a place where like money was a problem for like a long time to running our business, and for sure you have less resources. Like it
Mhm.
does fuck it up a lot. Like
Totally. I didn't say that. Like money is a tool.
yeah,
That's,
but then the additional increments of money doesn't make it better. Like you start getting like decreasing amount of like value like as money starts piling up for sure.
exactly. So I think what's important to take away from this is that money cannot be the end goal.
No, it cannot
It
be.
needs to be something more to life than having money.
It cannot be. It cannot be. Like money has like for me, my relationship with money was always like it's gonna come naturally. I don't know if it's right or wrong. I don't know. Some people might have different views on this, but for me, it has always been like, don't chase money. Chase like chase what you're doing on a day to day. Chase your values. Chase like your work.
Mhm.
Pay attention to your work and pay attention to the value you give to other people. And then let money come by its own. If you're very, very focused on money, there's a lot of decisions that I would have made that would probably have like destroyed my career if I was like just strictly thinking about money. And one of them was like, when starting off, like, I'm doing my first app, and I'm like, if you'd be focused on making money with this thing right now, it wouldn't work at all. Like we would have like probably stopped and like deviated and do something else. We were like, fuck money for a long time and let it just come by its own. So I agree with you. I don't think that ever it should be like what you should chase.
And you see, in your case, as you mentioned earlier, you're a very competitive person.
I am.
Exactly. So, which means that the field that you decided to play or the game you decided to play needs to also be very competitive.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, in my case, since it's more like competing against myself, well, for me, it would be like fulfillment of self, which means that the game that I want to play doesn't necessarily mean that it's around money. It's just financial prosperity is actually one of the guiding principle of your life, and it's important, I feel, to achieve that. It's just for me, like it's important to be balanced throughout all the different guiding principles.
So what's the game you're playing? If it's not business,
What
is it business?
Well, business is one part of it. If you want to have a fulfillment life, you need to also be able to play the money game, right? Or the business game, because it's such now more than ever a centerpiece to absolutely everything. Like everything is becoming a transaction nowadays, which historically wasn't like that. So that's a game that I do need to play in order to fulfill myself. But that's just one of the different avenues that I want to play. That's why I like to travel. That's why I like to go in nature, for example, because there are other aspects that I'm able to gain from it.
Yeah. I do see the traveling aspects and stuff as being like just experiences. But except for business, what other games are you playing?
All right, so let's go into the guiding principles of that I think are extremely important. All right, so financial prosperity, sound physical health. So taking care of your body, taking care of internally what you eat, how you eat, being, let's say, able to not eat for one day out of the week, for example. Can people do that? Not necessarily. From my point of view, I think this is part of having a sound physical health. Then you have peace of mind, because really when you think about that, the wealthiest individual is the one that wakes up with the least pressure on his shoulder. So that part for me is actually very important as well.
Is it, can we take one little break?
Yo, on était en plein milieu d'une fucking nice conversation. You sure? Yo, people, thank you very much. Chances are after this break, we're going to go on another subject. But stay tuned. We're just talking. We're having discussion. It's fucking amazing. I love that.